May it please the court. The defendant was supposed to be the designated driver, but the defendant decided to drive drunk. And it's because of that decision that Vanessa Sullivan lost her life. It's 2 o'clock in the afternoon. The defendant steps into Chuggy's bar, orders himself up a drink, and then another, and then another, and then another. He doesn't stop when his friends arrive. He doesn't stop when the server offers him free drink, free sodas. He doesn't stop when he realizes, finally, that he's supposed to be driving home that night. And when he does get behind the wheel of that car, he's too drunk to drive. He speeds out of the parking lot, goes careening down the road that he knows is dangerous, that he's been told is dangerous, all because he doesn't want someone's parents to get mad at him. Passes a cop and he slows down so he doesn't get a ticket, but that doesn't stop him. He speeds right back up. He starts taking those curves even faster. 66 miles an hour. He goes 66 miles an hour in a 35-mile-an-hour zone, in the dark, in the pouring down rain, on a road that he knows is dangerous. And he loses control of the car. The defendant in this case is charged with driving under the influence of alcohol and of murder. Now, in order to prove to you that the defendant is guilty of driving under the influence of alcohol, you're going to get instructed by the judge that you have to find that 2 things are true. The first is that the defendant operated a motor vehicle. No dispute about that one. The second is that the defendant was under the influence of alcohol intoxication. Members of the jury, look at the evidence that you've heard today. You heard from 2 different eyewitnesses about how many drinks he really had. You'll get a chance to look at those bar tabs to see how many drinks the defendant purchased. Whether or not you believe that he drank every single one of those drinks, well, that's not the important part. The important part is that he was under the influence of alcohol intoxication. He failed all 4 of those field sobriety tests. He got taken in for a breath alcohol analysis report, and the scientist that works for the state, and you'll get a chance to look at this document, said that the way he was acting is consistent with heavy to moderate drinking. That's out of the words of a scientist. In order to find the defendant guilty of driving under the influence, you don't have to believe that he was completely drunk. You just have to believe beyond a reasonable doubt that he was under the influence of alcohol intoxication. The second thing he's charged with is murder. Now, in order to find the defendant guilty of murder, you have to believe that he was recklessly engaging in conduct which created a grave risk of death to another. Members of the jury, what did you hear that the defendant did? After having, by his own admission, 10 or 11 drinks, he'd gone to a car with 2 young girls in the passenger seat and the back seat, and he sped home. He didn't even deny that he was speeding the entire way home. It was dark. It was pouring down rain. Members of the jury, it ought to make you cringe to think about going that fast when you can barely see in front of your own headlights. Now, that's not something that any sober, reasonable, law-abiding person would do. You also have to believe that these were under circumstances manifesting an extreme indifference to human life. So what does that mean? Well, look at the evidence, members of the jury. Where was the defendant's concern for human life after that accident when he was stumbling around in the roadway muttering about Jack and Ginger, not even caring about the people that were in the car? Where was his concern for life when he was bolting down that highway at speeds exceeding 66 miles an hour, almost twice the legal speed limit? Where was his concern for human life when he had drink after drink after drink, up to 10 or 11 drinks, and then he got behind the wheel of a car and he drove home drunk? He got up here and he tried to tell you, listen, all those witnesses against me, all those people that told you about all the drinks I had, that told you about how ridiculous my behavior was, they're all lying. Don't believe them. That's all he had to say. Members of the jury, he got up here and he lied to you. He told you that he was fine to drive that night. Remember some of the things that he said? The defense's own witness got up here and told you that right after that accident, the defendant in his own words said, "So stupid. Why did I let them talk me into driving when I knew I was tipsy?" Members of the jury, he wasn't the kind of drunk that we get when we've had a few drinks at the bar. He was stumbling, slurring, falling down, spilling his drink, unable to pass even a single field sobriety test drunk. That's how drunk he was when he got in that car and drove. That cab driver, remember, he told you he could barely understand the defendant's words. They were so slurred, just an hour and a half before he got in the car to drive those two women home. All because he wanted to get home on time because he didn't want someone's parents to be mad at them. Members of the jury, that night, the defendant took something very precious from the parents of Vanessa Sullivan. Because on her birthday, he decided to drive drunk. And from now on, every time Vanessa Sullivan's birthday rolls around, her parents won't get to celebrate with her anymore. They'll be putting flowers on her grave instead. After you finish your deliberations and you return a verdict, this case will be over for you, and you'll go home to your families. But for the families of the victim, this case will never end. Because the defendant was supposed to be the designated driver, but he decided to drive drunk.
May it please the court, opposing counsel, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. Today we've heard a lot of evidence about a very dangerous road. A road that everyone knows as the death zone. And ladies and gentlemen, all the evidence that we've presented today shows one simple thing, that on September the 24th, the death zone claimed another victim.